Welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. This is a podcast for male survivors of sexual abuse and assault, whether as a child or as an adult. Know that you are not alone and the abuse was not your fault. My name is Mike Chapman. I'm a certified recovery life coach and also a survivor. Let's find hope and healing together. And welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. I'm your host, Mike Chapman, and with me today is my special friend, special guest, Laurie Hardie. More about her in a moment. We often record live on these podcast episodes. If you would like to join us on future episodes live, you can learn more about how to do so at polarlifeconsulting.com/live. And let me read Laurie's introduction. Laurie Hardie is a Seattle radio personality, author, speaker, and podcast coach and producer who empowers survivors to share their stories and leave a meaningful legacy, whether privately or with the world. A former single mom of 3 and now Grandma LaLa to 6 grandchildren. Grandparentals. She blends over 35 years in broadcasting. And yeah, I've celebrated, we just celebrated a 35th anniversary. It's almost 40 for me in Germany. Anyway, with a background in social services to help people communicate in ways that truly connect. Inspired during COVID by the gap between intention and impact in online communication, she now guides voices to be more inclusive, intentional, and powerful, including through her 7-day Podcast Pro program that helps clients launch their podcasts in just 1 week. So welcome, Laurie. And in addition, my own background of Laurie, and she is the second female guest I've had on this podcast, if you're counting. And she means so much to me, and I've said it on this podcast several times. Back in 2020 in the fall, I was her first guest on her podcast that she co-hosts with Kevin Bolger, who's been on this podcast several times before. That's called No Longer Ashamed. And that was the first podcast I ever shared my story. And it went so well that I continued to share my story on podcasts. And then eventually I got training from her as recovery life coach. She led a workshop on that through CCAR, the Connecticut Center for Addiction Recovery. I remember that. Hey. And that was wonderful and helped me become a life coach. And then she also trained me on becoming a podcast host with that similar to the program she's mentioning. And that has helped me so much on my healing journey. And I just wanted to honor her and her legacy and what she's doing and what she's meant to me. So that's why she gets the honor of my second female guest on my show. And we're going to start things off like we do every week with 4 questions. Now it's time for 4 questions, that part of the podcast when we get to know our guest a bit better by asking a few questions. Let's go. So, Laurie, welcome to the podcast. First, what is your favorite food memory?
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Okay, these questions are a little difficult because I don't have a lot of childhood memories, but I do have a lot of memories. And I will say my most favorite food memory is just from 2 weeks ago when my sister took me on a cruise and we just got to eat whatever we wanted. And I had lobster almost every night.
Wow.
I know.
Excellent. Yes. I was able to go on a cruise recently, and actually it was part of the SOAP Project cruise. It was a retreat for male survivors of abuse, and they have wonderful fundraisers and grant money and so forth. So I went on a cruise, and it was first time on a long cruise, but yes, a lot of good food, lots of walking. But yes, that was very fun. And a lot of my guests, their favorite things are more adulthood memories than necessarily childhood memories. Absolutely, because we didn't always have the best childhood, and a lot of our favorite memories are as adults. Mm-hmm. And that's perfectly fine, actually understandable. So what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Well, I don't have one. I have a couple, and it's whenever I had a new grandbaby. Their first Christmas is always so special.
Grandparent goals.
And I know I have 6 now, so it's very special to have Christmas with grandkids. There's just nothing like it.
I can only imagine. No grandkids yet, but my daughter is engaged. So we'll see how that goes. And they are planning on having kids right away because they're both in their early 30s. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
nice.
it's coming. Yay. Yay. So, what is your favorite scripture or any inspirational quote that has helped you on your spiritual journey? And what about it speaks to you?
There's a verse it's in the Message, and I think it's in Philippians, and it says, "Live in hopeful anticipation, like what's next, Papa." And I love that verse and I love that version. And what it speaks to is it's hard for me to say Papa because that's where some of my abuse came from. And I resented Christians who would say, "Oh, I just sitting in Papa's lap." And I'm like, that's dangerous. So the fact that this verse resonates with me is surprising, but I love it so much. And whenever there's those times, I just like, what's next, Papa? What's next?
Excellent. Yes. I love the Message when I'm reading. I'll do it online, but then it'll be several versions that I'll scroll through. And that's one of my go tos because it's a total paraphrase. And then there's another version that's like as close to, they'll expand on to make sure that the English sounds as accurate as possible to the original language. So you get all the nuances that English can't quite recover. So it's like two opposite ends of the spectrum and then a couple in between just to get a different flavor. And I'm a linguist. It's like, yeah, having those different versions means a lot. And yeah, that Message version that's a full paraphrase in modern language. I love that. And yeah, so many of us have had father wounds, and that concept of father God, daddy God is so foreign for so many of us. And that was part of my own journey as well. I know becoming a father, once I became a father, that helped. And I've shared that in my story before that, yeah, as I was teaching things to my children, God saying, yeah, that's how I'm with you. It's like, okay, loving on them, taking care of them, even holding them when they had to get shots, all of that. Yeah, and really helped me to understand how Father God really loves us. But yeah, that's huge, but it's an important step as we learn and heal from those father wounds. Absolutely, yes. So, what is your favorite church or house of worship?
That's a hard one, but that actually is a childhood one because we got to go to this church. I live in the Seattle area and grew up on an island. And so we didn't get off the island much, but we got to go to this big church. I think it was a Presbyterian church in downtown Seattle. And it was some sort of retreat. It wasn't like really camp. And it was like for a little island girl, it was like, wow, look at all these other people that I don't know. And I just remember it being one of our funnest weekends.
Nice, nice. Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. When I was a child, my grandparents would take us to church, and huge church in the middle of Portland, and huge grounds, beautiful grounds, and you go in the Sunday school area. They have the big portrait of Jesus with all the children sitting around of all the different skin colors. Jesus loves all the children of the world, singing songs and all that. So God, we didn't go very often, but when we did, that gave me a little foundation. Yeah, and
So there was one more thing. So because I was on an island, we didn't live close to a church, but we
wow,
had this little clubhouse in our community, and some people took it upon themselves to just run a little Sunday school there. So these people where I lived, Lagoon Point, would drive around with their station wagon, the 3 seats and the one in the back turn looking out and they'd come by. Our parents would be, drunk, passed out from partying, and they'd come get us and we'd hop in and go to Sunday school. And that was really a beautiful, wonderful, safe place. And my teacher, Dodie Hamby, had the biggest Bible in the world. And I was talking about it as an adult. And I told her about it. She goes, "Honey, you know why my Bible was so big?" I go, "Because you used it so much. You were so godly." She goes, "No, I dropped it in a mud puddle." So when it dried, it crinkled up, and that's why it was so big.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, that's nice. Yes. So I know, uh, listening to your podcast, and I've listened to every episode that you do with Kevin. I don't think I've listened to your other podcasts, but I probably should. But yeah, the one you have with Kevin, I listen to all the episodes, and you talk a little bit about your story, but you don't go too much in depth. Kevin's the same way. And I was glad I really got him to go deep and share a lot more of his story when he came on my podcast. So I want to give it up to you. Because I know you've got a history of abuse and trafficking. So share as much as you feel comfortable sharing about that. And then from there, I would love to hear about your healing journey, what you've done, especially what you've done that has worked, and also what you've tried that didn't work. Because some things work for some people and sometimes that doesn't work for other people. And so it's always good to hear those things that, yeah, I tried something and it didn't work, but I still kept going. I didn't give up and tried something else, and something else worked. So that's wonderful to hear. And then I'd love to hear more about what you're doing now. I know you're a radio host, but then you do all these teachings and trainings and continue your podcast with Kevin, and you got your other podcasts going on. So I'd love to hear more about that as well. So tell us more about Laurie.
Well, thank you so much. And I just have to shout kudos to you because as a podcaster, I know you're almost to 100, or actually, I'm 104. So you're
Yes.
past 100. And that
as
is
we're recording, I have not released episode 100 as we're recording, but when this posts, yes, you'll be 104.
Exactly.
Tentatively, yes.
That is really a feat because that content is content. And it's like when we are consistent and we show up, people know, like, and trust us. And then when they're ready, because we know in this, with abuse, it's hard. It's really hard for people to come forward with their story. In fact, you've probably told people this, that usually it's a takes 26 years for the average, especially male, to come forward with a story. And
absolutely, yes.
So it is very difficult. When I was growing up, at one time I tried to share something that was going on with a youth leader. And I'm sure that I didn't use the right words, but she told me, we have to pray. We have to pray for your family. So we prayed. So in our day and age, and I think I'm older than you, there really wasn't the support. And so I walked through just stuffing it down. And then when I became a parent, all these like little flashes. So I had repressed memories. And so when I started to look at them, that was about the same time Dr. Dobson came out with false repressed memories. And so it was kind of like, still, I can't talk about it because now I have false repressed memories. And the church really wasn't a safe place. And it wasn't, they just didn't know. They didn't know how to deal with it. And when what happened was, it was after my second child, I believe, I was out riding horses with my husband. We had horses and we took this trail, and on it was an old abandoned house, and some memory triggered. And I actually, and I know this is a panic attack now, but I actually thought I was going to die. I can't explain it, but we got home, and because we had other people with us, so I didn't want to say anything. And I got home, and I didn't even know what to do. So I shared with a girlfriend, and she's like, "Can you call a counselor?" And I tried to call, and do you have insurance? No. So it was really hard to get into counseling. And she would call me every day, and she'd go, "Can you make one call today?" So I finally got into some counseling, and I remember sharing so matter-of-factly things that happen. And my counselor would say, "Well, you know what that is, don't you? You know it's a thing." And I'm like, "A thing?" Because people who are abusers, they kind of have an MO. And I remember in high school, we were reading, I don't know, Of Mice and Men, maybe. And there was the word incest. And nobody explained what it was. And I went down to the office to the secretary, small school, Charlotte Tucker, and I said, "What's incest?" And she goes, "Well, that's when dads are inappropriate with their daughters, or maybe an uncle, or." And I was like, I'm trying to keep a stone face here because I'm like, because when we're repressing it, we know it's wrong, but we have no outlet. And so all of this confusion.
Or even no language as
Yes,
well.
yes. And so when I started in counseling, I knew that we had family history of suicide, mental illness, all of these things. But it never, when I originally went to counseling before I had kids, it never came out. But then as it started to come out, I remember going to our friend Kevin, his wife, Charnel is one of my best friends. And I went to her house and we were talking, and I told her something. I told her that my dad was my abuser. And this was before cell phones, and I left and I got home, and we lived like 5 miles away, and I called her. I go, "You're not going to tell anyone, are you?" "No, no, no," and then I call, "You're not going to tell." I was literally freaking out. And bless her heart, and she told me later, she said then she tried to call me and I wouldn't answer. She couldn't like access me because I kind of went into hiding. And so a lot of those things were happening, but we didn't know what they were. But she did walk with me through it. And then when she met Kevin and they were getting married, she told me he was a survivor. And I remember just being confused, going, "A survivor?" She goes, "Yeah, of child sexual abuse." And I was like, "Oh, we're survivors?" Like, I still didn't get it. And I feel like there just wasn't the help. And also it was dangerous. And because some of the things that I went through, as you mentioned, I was trafficked as a little girl. We had two grandpas who worked for here, Todd Shipyards, which is a big deal. Well, they were laid off, and guess what? They got to babysit us. So things would happen. And of course, we didn't know, and we were threatened not to say anything. And so when I remember when I was older, like going to Bible college, and I would say, it's so crazy. We were babysat by alcoholic, mentally ill grandparents, and it's amazing nothing ever happened to us. That's what I would say. And so it wasn't until I had that panic attack and I got into counseling and started to unravel a lot of the things and the dysfunction. And I remember thinking, how is this me? How is this my life? And I then became estranged from my parents because they weren't willing to get help or to listen or even believe. And I remember was after my third child was born, so it was a couple years later, I got a mean letter from my dad saying and I didn't go telling people. I only told my counselor, but we did tell them. We did say we're breaking relationship, and it was so mean. And my husband at the time read it and just said, "You don't need to read this." But I remember him telling me he was basically accusing me of lying. I don't know what I ever did and all this. And so because I carried it all, it was hard to start to be able to talk about it. I feel like people now, if they're younger, there's more vessels, there's more places, vehicles to talk about it. And we've talked about all the different kinds. So my therapy first was talk therapy, and that worked for me. And then I started doing some tapping. Have you heard of tapping?
Right.
And yes, tapping worked really well for me. And so I've gone to counseling off and on when I've had insurance, but I'm also a life coach. So I do my own work. I get coaches, I work through issues. And so even now, I feel like I wish we could just be better. So one time I shared something about being trafficked. I don't know exactly what I did. I was in a recovery group, like one of those Celebrate Recovery before Celebrate Recovery.
Right.
And a kid from my neighborhood was missing, and it was on the news. In my mind, I knew what happened to that kid. I mean, I didn't know, but I thought I knew.
Right.
And so when I went to the group that night, it just came out. Well, I was accused. Have you told anyone? Have you? Because there was a child that my grandfathers took. And so they're like, have you? And here I'm an adult, but this happened when I was a tiny child. And so I got attacked by the people in the group because they couldn't see me as a child. They saw me as an adult, and how could I not tell? And then the counselor told me later that she had to go to counseling that night. And so I learned really quickly to keep my mouth shut. And so that has been my journey. And even I wrote a book, I've done a lot of things, but one-on-one, I will share. I work with women in recovery, and often they'll share. And if it's appropriate, I will get up on big stages a lot, but that's not what I talk about. But it's not because I'm ashamed. I have family that, if someone in your family, one of your siblings, doesn't want their kids to know, then we
Right.
have to find our place with that. And I'm not saying don't. I'm saying we find our place, we work through it. So I've been very careful, but I will share on that personal level because I do get it. But there wasn't a word for trafficking. So I didn't even know, even when I was going to counseling and I knew about the grandpas and we had memories, I knew the things that happened, but we didn't have the word trafficking. And so as we've gotten better language, things have made better sense to me. And then I can start to process it. Now when things come up or feelings come up, I remember when Kevin and I first started the podcast, and I think it was because of you, Mike. he had a setback, but he thought he was back to step 1. And I kept saying, you're not back at step 1. This is circular. Recovery is circular. And it stirred some things, but that's all part of what we do. When we hear hard stories, because we know, Mike, you can't tell your story to anybody. We have to be selective and careful. So,
and then how much and how deep, and whether surface or very detailed.
Exactly.
Yeah, I believe with Kevin, that was when I believe he realized he had been groomed. And we talked about it on the podcast.
We had a panel.
Talk about grooming. Right. Talk about grooming. He's like,
let's talk about this. And then all of a sudden,
was I groomed?
No.
It's like, oh my gosh, I think I was groomed. Yeah. I remember him struggling with that for a while.
Yeah.
Because,
but he really,
as soon as you put a label on anything in our journey, it's like, oh, there's a name for that. Just like I was abused. Oh, am I a survivor? Like you said, oh, there's a name for that. And then, oh, this other stuff happened. Yeah, you were shared. That's called you were trafficked. It's like, no, it's like, well, here's the definitions. No, is this? Oh, and it's just mind blowing. And then you have this language, and it's a lot to process when there's another name for the thing I have. So I have this, and now I have this. But now it's also this. But it's also this. And it's just the language is so powerful, and having a name for the thing that you're experiencing, it's like, oh, and then you can step back. Oh, there's this name, and realize, oh, okay, it's a big mind explosion. Absolutely,
it is. And I think, I'm not saying this is worse, because any abuse is awful anytime you take advantage of a child, but parent abuse is so difficult because there's that confusion of love
and safety. That they're your source souls. They're what's keeping you alive. Absolutely.
And they're supposed to take care of me. They're supposed to protect me. And so I think that is, an element that I've really had to work on. And then I become a parent, and it's like people say all the time to new moms, trust your instinct. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be pushing my kid down the stairs.
Yeah. From that wonderful role model that we had. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So, and the good news is there is healing. And the thing I really, really stress on our podcast, Kevin and I, is it's about telling someone your story. So it's not about getting up on the stage and, telling everybody everything, but it is beginning to get it out of our head. Because what we've learned about science is if it's in our head, we don't process it. But if we write it or if we speak it, we begin to make sense. And Mike, as a coach, how many times do people say it out loud and then they look at you and go, that makes more sense now that I've just said it.
Right. Yeah. And you reiterate things. And
yeah. And we're not broken. I wish that.
I'm trying to decide whether or not I need to agree with that. I should agree with that. Part of me says, no, I'm pretty broken. I'm putting my pieces back together and healing. But there's brokenness in there, but we're not completely broken. Yes.
Broken crayons still color.
That's right.
And there's so many amazing things we do with broken crayons.
The Kintsugi bowl thing. I love that. That's the broken pottery, and then they seal it with gold, and then the glory shines through the brokenness. Yes.
And I remember one time when I was going through a divorce, and I yelled at God and I said, if this is so that I can help somebody else relate, I'm not very happy about it. But what I realized is it's not God doing it to us. And so as an abused child, not realizing it, people would say things, Christians would say things like, it was meant to be, or blah, blah, blah. And then my child brain is going, God meant for this to happen. I'm translating everything through the eyes of abuse. And people aren't saying it to be mean. But then what happens is it's putting that bad light on Christianity, because it's like, wait, everyone's saying everything's meant to be and everything happens for a reason. So God put me in that home. God wanted this for me. And so again, it's language, right? Is how we're going to look at it. And it really is what we do with it. But when we suffer and we don't share, like, so when people may not realize that if they're holding a story in, they may be sick, they may be depressed, they may be physically sick, and they don't realize that it's the story and it's the harm that what that trauma did to them. And they feel like if they tell, nobody will believe them. If they tell, people are going to think they're broken and think they're disgusting or awful or whatever they think about themselves. But the truth is, when we find that safe person to share our story with, and the first time we get a nod, and I believe you, I hear you, things start to break loose and we realize it happened to us, and we realized we didn't make it happen because we're adults thinking that we had the adult brain when we were a child, and we weren't. We didn't.
Right. It kills the guilt and the shame. Getting it out of our head and sharing it with another person. It's like that shame is gone because you're talking to another person. They don't hate you. They don't see you in a bad light. They realize, oh my gosh, you were a victim of all these things. And so you don't hate me after. I guess I was a victim. You don't even see it until, yeah. And having that other person's perspective on it is just so healing. And you say in the intro, I'm no longer ashamed. Once you started your story, that's when you found your healing. And it's true. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's the and on the podcast we use the term power of story, and our stories have power not only to help us heal, but other people hear the story and it helps them heal also.
Yeah. Yeah. In
Absolutely.
fact, you probably experienced this too, but our podcast, we've had people reach out and say, my gosh, I didn't even know this was a thing. And younger they are, the better, because then they can do the work. And it is a process, because it may take a while. Like, I've watched your process. We may take a while before we tell our family. We may take a while before we even tell a spouse, but it is a process. It's one baby step at a time. And knowing that we will be okay, because I think before we tell the story, there's this fear we won't be okay. For me, it was a fear of mental illness because that was in my family. And I thought maybe I was getting it. And so then when I was able to start telling my story, my counselor was like affirming me, you're not crazy. You're not crazy. And because sometimes memories are vague now, I don't know if you've talked about this, but often they will drug the child. So memories can be vague, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
and I think that's so disruptive. But also the signs are there and we know what we know. And if we're getting healing and feeling free, because no one would make this up.
Right.
Not a normal person. Not people
Right.
like you and me.
Right.
You don't make this stuff up. And so I work with women, homeless women, and they'll come in and tell me about their boyfriend. I'm like, honey, that's your trafficker. That's your trafficker. And it's so hard to admit it. But I think when we are able to get rid of the substances and the things we're doing to cover the pain, because it's so painful and so confusing, and having someone to walk through, talk through, when your life starts making sense, even if it's a hot mess, that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, having somebody else who has the wisdom, has some experience, shedding light on it, realizing, oh, again, power of story. I'm not the only one.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's so empowering to hear from another person who has experienced something similar.
Yeah.
Realizing, oh, I'm not crazy. Oh, it's normal to
Yeah.
feel these things. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so freeing. Absolutely.
It is. And I love that more awareness is coming because, we heard about trafficking overseas, but I think that I want people to understand that it is happening under our noses. And we've talked about that organization, I Am on Watch, and it's a 1 hour, about 5 videos. You watch it if you're working at a grocery store, if you're working at a restaurant, to help you see, oh, maybe that person's being trafficked. And oh, by the way, don't go confront them and try and save them or their abuser. Call the number. Let the professionals do the thing. And I think the more we learn and the more we're willing to say, this is really happening. Kevin often says, where is the outrage? It's because I think average people just don't want to believe. And because we've been through it, we know it happens.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll put that in the show notes links, like everything else we're talking about today. So now you've shared your story. Tell me about your healing journey, what you've done to find healing. You've gone to therapy and so forth. What specific things have you tried either in therapy or outside of therapy that have really helped you, or what you've tried and it's like, no, that didn't do a darn thing. And so I stopped doing that and I went and did something else. So I'd love to hear that part of your story as well.
That's so great because there weren't a lot of options when I first started talk therapy, which for me was good because it's like, oh, really, that's what. And so, and the trafficking of me as a child didn't really come out in that. The parental abuse came out, but that came later because I probably didn't talk about it because I didn't know it wasn't normal. And I think that that's the thing is, like, even when you see domestic violence in a family and then they marry someone like that, they're like, well, I thought that was normal. And so counseling worked for me when I became a coach, and then I got in the coaching community. That helped me a lot because coaching wasn't so much about going back. I'd already done that. It was about how do we move forward and how do we take who we are and not make the abuse our identity, because it's not. But it is something that's part of us. And so integrating all of that and recognizing that I could still help people, even if this is, I don't want to say a lifelong struggle, but it is always, it keeps showing up in different ways, but whenever it does, I nip it in the bud, whether it's calling a coach, calling a counselor, talking with a friend who knows me. And so that's the journey when I have let certain people in that I trust, then, because there are some people that want to know your story because they want to gossip and be mean.
Right.
And so, especially in church, and I hate to say this because I love God, I love Jesus, but church has not been a safe place for me.
Right.
And so I keep silent. I serve, I do my thing, but I keep silent. But wouldn't it be awesome if not only people that were abused, but people who are struggling with pornography, which is probably very possibly because of abuse, what if we could be honest in church? And I think there are some churches, but I think there is this level of, oh, we can't deal with that. And so, I want to be that place that people can come, that can feel safe to share their story. And Kevin will often say, just go to your church. I go, no, 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 Kevin, church isn't always safe. For him, it was a really safe place to land. And I'm so happy. And his pastor is amazing. And I just love that he was able to share at church. But I know, and there's other women I know that have been abused. And when they tried to tell their story at church, they were shut out of the women's groups and actually like accused of things because maybe we have behaviors, that we don't know yet because we haven't got to that place in our counseling. And so for me, it's really a lot of this self-coaching enough to know this is when I need to see someone, talk to someone, be a part of something. And also when I am able to connect with someone who's been through it and just say, I see you. There's just something very healing about knowing this person's going to walk on a journey and I see them and I believe them. And so that's why it's important for us to, in whatever way we can, share our stories and at whatever place, but be respectful of the child inside and where they're at in their healing. So the inner child work was really good for me. My child's grown up mostly. Every once in a while she throws a little tantrum, but integrating all of that has really been healing. And I don't ever say I'm healed or cured, but I've come so far and I know anything that's going to come up I can face.
Right. Yeah, it's a healing journey for sure.
I'll say that there is some risk in sharing because when I went to my cousin and I told her to keep her kids away from my mom and dad, that side of the family abandoned me and left me.
Right.
And Yeah, it was my favorite aunt, and it was her daughter that I was talking to, and it broke my heart because now I'm basically an orphan. And so there is risk. There is risk, and sometimes it's not worth it. And that really is your journey. If someone's trying to tell you you need to get away, you have to find what you can live with. And it's not always total no contact, but finding the place that you can honor yourself and be honest, not go, oh, it doesn't matter, but really be honest because we have to advocate for that child inside. Adult us has to advocate for when that child feels unsafe, unheard. That's where we come in and we stand up and we say, I love myself enough to advocate and to stand up and to do what is the healthiest thing for me and my family.
Right. And like you were saying before, you have the different people that you can go to that are safe people that you can talk to when you're struggling, when you're having issues, that know your story. And just like me, sometimes if it's really bad, I'll call my therapist. But there's several people, some leadership and husband material, other people. I've got some accountability friends that we meet regularly. And yeah, they know my story and they know I can call if I'm struggling and they get it and they're safe. And you need that because we all have, hills and valleys that we face, and having that support network in place. That's part of your recovery, getting those things and supporting those things and allowing those things to flourish so that you have those and you know how to utilize those things. And it's so key to have that. That's definitely part of your healing journey. So what other things have you tried? You talk therapy early on and so forth. Are you still doing any therapy now? Tried any of the newer brain sciencey kind of things that are out there?
I'm so curious, and I am starting with a counselor that does EBT. That has really, for some reason, that method, I'm really looking forward to trying that. Um,
And EBT stands for?
Emotional, or it's something behavior. It's it's kind of that eye movement.
You mean EMDR?
That's what I mean. EMDR. That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah, EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing.
That's it. And so, and I swim, and there's something about swimming where your arms are crossing that is very therapeutic to me. And often when I'm feeling like sometimes we don't know we've been activated. We don't know something like we've seen something and when I get that feeling, I recognize it now and I'll put my hand over my heart and I say, you're safe and you are loved. And sometimes it feels so ridiculous because I'm this older woman, but it is a reminder to stop and breathe all those basic things, drinking water, breathing, telling ourselves, I am safe, I am loved, because our brain thinks it's happening when we get triggered or activated. Our brain thinks it's happening right now. And so now the adult us has done all the work, can go, wait a minute, I know you're freaking out. I don't know what it is that you saw, but you're safe right now. You don't need to flee or fawn or freeze or any of those things. You can just take a minute and breathe. And really, that is therapy. That is huge therapy. And taking minutes of joy, that has been a huge thing for me because I don't play. And I didn't realize that I don't play. And we talked a little bit about this, Santa Mike. And so going on this cruise and swimming and snorkeling. And so my sister has taught me to take joy moments. So if I see a sunset or a sunrise or a squirrel, I stop and I count to 10 and absolutely soak it up before I get on with my busy day because it's really easy to keep too busy. We're running. For me, it's running from that. I don't want to run from it. I want to embrace every good thing in my life and be a yes person, not a scared person.
Right, absolutely. I know the cruise I went on had one of those moments. It was full moon, just reflecting off the ocean, and it was nighttime, and it was just glowing. You can see the moon reflecting in the ripples, and I think I took a picture to do it justice. But it's just like just taking that in and seeing God's beauty on the waves, the nice and the moon. It's just like that's and just taking that moment. And yeah, doing those kind of things. Going back to EMDR, one of the key foundations of that is bilateral stimulation. So they will sometimes do it auditorially, will they do a boom, 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 right, left, but also tapping. And you mentioned swimming, which is a bilateral stem
Yeah.
because you're doing right arm, left arm, right arm, left, unless you're doing butterfly. But if you're
Yeah.
doing that alternating thing,
Yeah.
also walking. Someone said, yes, walking is a bilateral stem because you're step, 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 step. And so it's it's mild, but still it helps connect both sides of your brain.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's what they do. They'll also do it tactily. Will go little uh, like a vibration, zit, 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 but they've got all pain. So then you can then reprocess some of these stored traumas. Similar concepts in brain spotting that I'm a provider for, those kind of things. But
Yeah,
getting the
that's
trauma
very
out and processing those things, absolutely.
right. The brain spotting, I remember looking into that when you were talking about it. And the thing that's so wonderful is that there are so many amazing things that we can look into and we can see what works for us because the same thing doesn't work for everybody. And
Right.
maybe it'll work for a little while and then you try something else.
Right. And they'll approach it in different ways and unlock different things and help you
Mhm.
with process different things. So I know my therapist had a huge toolbox and he would pull out all kinds of tools to use with me. He does know EMDR. He did not use that on me. He said he didn't think it would be the best fit for me, but yeah, it's very effective. But he had all these other wonderful tools. And yeah, I've talked about my story, but
You know
that,
something else that's really shifted for me? When I first started having the memories and because I was safe so I could have them,
right,
I wanted to know everything. I pray God just show me everything right now. And God didn't because he's a
right.
gracious God. And now I'm like, yeah, no, I don't need any new. I don't,
Yeah,
we're good.
yeah, it's like because I know so much I blocked out, but bit by bit is coming back, and a lot of it is just feelings, impressions, things that I know happened, or triggers like bright lights are triggering, and finding out okay why that is and how it all relates to the story and so forth. I also want to go back to what you said before about repressed memories with focus on the family and that the false repressed memories. That was a thing, but it's been mostly disproven. I know Mary, I'll put it on the screen and links to her story. She was trafficked as well. And she's actually in Washington State. We should get you guys connected. A wonderful story. She's written a book. And her parents were huge on the false memory system, but they were the ones who trafficked her and abused her. And so forth. It's like, oh no, no, these are just fake memories. And they were all on that bandwagon. And then it's proven again and again and again that
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
very, 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 very few of these memories are false memories.
Right. It's not like we'll say, like, we know there's situations with divorce where someone will accuse someone of sexual abuse and it's not. But those are the rare cases. Let's not base everything, the rareness on this. And so, thank you for clarifying that because I think there's, I don't even like to say repressed memories because then people are like, are you sure? It's like, you know what? I know what I know and I'm healing and I love my life. I love the things I'm doing. So, you know what? Whatever. You do you, but I know what I went through.
Yes, Mary Knight, Knight, and she's written books and so forth. Well, maybe I'll have her on the podcast, but yes,
Yeah.
definitely look her up, and I will put links to her stuff on the show notes as well. But a wonderful advocate, but she has been fighting hard against the false memory symptom concept and realizing most of it is crap. And a lot of the proponents of that movement were actually abusers trying to discount the stories that have been posed against them.
Which brings me to the thing that I think when we get healthy and we really deal with this, victims will often be re victimized over and over. A woman gets raped. What were you wearing? Or, so, we get questioned when the person is a person of authority in a church, a leader. And I think that is a really hard thing is, Kevin and I know you, we want people, when someone comes to you and says, I think I was abused, we want people to say, I believe you. No, not Joe, not Pastor Joe, because aren't we seeing this, Mike? Churches that people that we respect these leaders, and it's coming out that, yes, indeed, they were abusers. And if we can broaden the awareness, make children safer, then this is making a difference. What you're doing, what we're doing, because it's not easy to share a difficult story, but we do it because it's happening and we want it to stop. And I think that's the wind beneath our wings. That's the reason. We don't do it because we want to go see me. We're like, no, don't look at me, but no, this is happening.
Right. Absolutely. And the grooming that happens, that they don't just groom the child, they groom the environment, they groom the gatekeepers. So if it's a church, it's the whole church. They're
Yes.
grooming the whole church to entrust this person, so that way, if anything does get disclosed, no way would that ever happen, because he's so sweet, he's so perfect, and so helpful, blah, blah, blah. He's groomed you into believing all that so that he can then perpetrate. Happens all the time.
Yes.
And story after story on my podcast, into my coaching, so much happens in the name of God in churches, front for trafficking too, not necessarily by leaders, or at least not head leaders, but people in leadership get access to buildings. Yeah, churches are fronts for sex trafficking.
Yes.
A lot. And
not all churches, but yes, it is a truth.
Not all churches, but yes, a significant number.
Yeah.
That people will use it to infiltrate, to abuse, and then they use it as fronts for trafficking. Happens a lot in every denomination, everything out there.
Well, we have
not just Catholic, it's everything.
Right. We have a favorite podcast, both of I don't like the title, but The Ugly Truth About the Girl Next Door.
Brilliant podcast, link in the show notes, and they're doing more episodes. They took a breather for a year. We're talking about now the Epstein files.
Yes.
And brilliant.
And what I love that they said is, yes, this is tragedy, what we're seeing, but you know what? This isn't isolated. This is happening everywhere. Don't focus on this so much that you think, oh, this is so big, it's only a one-time thing. No, let's look at it and go, this is happening. Men in power, women in power are abusing and taking their authority or their money and hurting innocent children. So I love
there
what
are little Epsteins or Epstein equivalents all across the country doing the same thing, just not getting the publicity. And Epstein was not the top of the pyramid. He was working for others, and possibly an informant for intelligence agencies, and working for non-intelligent agencies as well, to manipulate people into doing what these more powerful people want them to do. So it's all of this, and it happens all the time. I hear stories in Hollywood, happens in Hollywood all the time. All these things. Absolutely.
I was just on the cruise, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, that's the island." That's the island it all happened on.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That's
I know.
Yeah.
He's like, I know this isn't popular, but I got to point it out. And then the other guy said,
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't have to point it out, but yeah.
Another one of the guides said, oh, yeah, and over there, that's my ex-girlfriend's house, Rihanna. But Mike, I just want to say that I am really proud of you for speaking up, because, we talk about you a lot on our podcast, because we know it wasn't easy.
You do. I was like, oh, Mike. It's like, oh, that's me. That's right. Yes, our friend Mike. You talk about your friend Mike.
Yeah, and you took it the next step, and you did a podcast. I can't tell you how many people say, I'm going to do a podcast. The next year they go, I go, if you would have done it last year, you'd have 52 episodes. And all of these episodes are evergreen. And so now it's your legacy of helping others, of you're not alone. I think that is the hardest thing. Is I always felt alone. I never felt like I fit in to church or anywhere. I felt like something was wrong with me because I didn't know what I didn't know. And, think if you and I would have had a podcast to listen to, how much maybe easier earlier we would have got help.
Absolutely. And that's what led me to getting help, was hearing more and more stories of men coming out who were abused or assaulted. Terry Crews, Anthony Edwards, all these famous people. And then the linchpin was the Leaving Neverland story of the people who were abused by Michael Jackson, and them coming out for our HBO thing. No longer available, which I'm very upset about. But very profound. And that got me to get help because of that.
Yeah, can I just say, as a person who works in radio and had to play his songs every single day, the best I could do was to just not say his name, never introduce one of his songs. And, they're like, well, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater or whatever. But, I have strong feelings about that. And it's just funny how people who haven't been through anything, they're like, no big deal. But people were hurt.
Personally, whenever I hear the music, I was a big fan. I loved a lot of his music. Now, whenever I hear a song come on, I switch the station. If I'm streaming, I'll go to a different streamer or a different channel or whatever. It's like, no, I will not listen to it. I've been in groups that had playlist for party, whatever thing, and they say, and it's like, oh, don't do Michael Jackson, please. No.
And
No,
I just had someone on a podcast the other day and they said, I'm looking at the man in the mirror and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to go there, but I'm probably going to edit this out.
Abusing kids. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So much about that. And then more and more keeps coming out.
Another episode
for him. And sad. Though it has come out, he was very much anti-Epstein, which kudos for him, though it doesn't condone what he did himself. So, yeah. Moving on. So, you've talked about your healing journey. What things are you doing now? I know you got your podcast with Kevin, and you've talked about how that came about, and so thrilled. And you're coming close on 200 episodes. Woohoo. I'm catching up. Yes. Yay! Because I know Kevin only posts like maybe 2 episodes a month, more or less. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And rehashes old episodes and replays those. So if I discount all those, I'm like really close.
Yes. And the purpose of that is because, so I teach podcasting and I walk beside you. It's a boutique. I will walk you through this process in 7 days and get you up and running. And so I teach that you got to post every week or at least consistently. And so I told Kevin, you've got 100, start redoing, but we both work and sometimes it's hard. And I always say, go do an interview without me. It's okay. But, we kind of like, he talks very slow and I talk very fast. And I do think we're a good match and we do get along so well. But yeah, I have some people in the wings, but it's just a matter of really trying to get the time. And I keep telling him, aren't you going to retire? Shouldn't you retire? Like we could then just really do this.
He's working towards retirement. I am too, but it's like, and I get that because it's like, I'm not there yet. Obviously 67, I qualify for full Social Security. So that's the goal date, but I get Medicare at 65. Then I'm hoping at that point, because then I'll have medical benefits and I can go on my wife's. She retired from the state government, so she gets super Medicare, their state plan, Medicare affiliated, whatever. I can go under her plan. Nice. So it's like, okay, but I'm a few years away from that. So I'm like working full time until then, and then I can like drop down to part time, keep my other benefits with working, and it's a whole thing. Yeah, it's like you got to plan this thing, and then I can do a lot more. Right. Which would be wonderful. Yes.
And absolutely. A shout out to Kevin's wife, because she is such a big, big advocate for us. And absolutely. She went to a women's retreat, and she brought books from our friend
Nathan,
but also Doug and my book and then other books that we've referred to. And she did a workshop, and we're actually going to take that online. Because she is such a great advocate. She 2 things she points out is to say, I believe you and you're not alone. But here's the other thing, Mike, and I know it's time to wrap up, but we interviewed a lawyer and he said, when parents say to their kids, man, they'll hear the news. Some kids been abused. They go, that ever happened to you? I'd kill the guy. Well, what happens is when parents say things like that, yes, it's beautiful. And wouldn't we have loved our parents to be like that? But what happens then is the kid is abused and they're going, I don't want my dad to kill a guy and go to prison and I'll live without him. So I'll shut up. And so that is a tip I love to pass on. And Charnel's so good at all of this. And we will let you know when we're going to do the workshop, because we want family members, people to just be aware it's happening. And this is how we can begin to change our language to make it safer for these kids to come forward so they don't have to wait 26 years.
Right, absolutely. And I quote that all the time on my podcast now. And now I'm like reminded, oh, that's where I got that from. Because I will store all kinds of things, but not necessarily remember the source. But yes, I talk about that as well. It's like, no, I'm going to kill him. No, you don't want to do that because of that very reason. Yeah, it will, the kids will go, well, obviously I'm not going to share. Yeah. So yes, and I love that. What radio station are you hosting now working?
So now in Seattle, I used to be on Warm 106.9, which was a music station. I loved it, loved it, loved it. But now I'm semi-retired, so I can help more women, men, but mostly, I mean, I've helped a lot of men, right? But
right, absolutely.
Older women that just need to have their voice heard, get their podcast going. So I'm on Cairo Radio, Kiro, and it is a #1 talk station. The music station was the #1 station. So I've been so blessed to have this career in radio. And that is why I'm really good at what I do, because I help people speak in a way that makes the listener lean in and say, me too. Yeah, no, whatever. If somebody talks back to me on the radio, I don't know it. But if they do, I've done my job well, because I want you to feel like you're the only one in the room.
Right. Absolutely. So you do that. You've got No Longer Shame podcast. What's the name of your other podcast that you host?
Interrupted. Act 2, reinventing your legacy, because it really is about leaving a legacy.
And in that, you interview a lot of women on that podcast, talking about their journeys and so forth.
Yeah. And it's been really interesting because I don't go find them anymore. They come to me because I help podcasts get in the top 10%. And all of my students either have that, or they've got, like, some of them have 45,000 downloads. Like, I know how to get you seen and heard. And so that is, a good thing. And when you're ready to go Facebook and we're ready to promote this, I'll give you my little formula to, get you more up there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And any final words you would like to give to that listener out there, that survivor out there?
If you feel unsafe, like we keep saying, tell your story, but if telling your story would make you unsafe, like the ugly truth about the girl next door, find a safe place. Go to a domestic violence place, because they know how to help you go under the radar until you are ready to go on the radar. But
even if you're a guy,
find a safe place that you can talk to. And if you've told a family member and they're like, you need to, just know that you have to honor yourself. Don't let somebody push you into going too soon, doing too quick, but take that little baby step and go at your pace. And then try to trust the people that, not the family or not the friends, but the professionals that can help you. Trust them. They've been through this. They know how to help you if you're in danger. If you're not, find that safe person and get yourself free from this story. And even if you go, well, I don't know if I was, go talk to somebody. Because once you start putting it out there, it's almost like those mechanical or Tetris, things start to fall into place. Right, Mike?
Right. Well, absolutely. Yeah. Those puzzle pieces start fitting and working together. All of a sudden, you get the picture and you start to see the bigger picture of what's happened. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And it's hard, but it's beautiful, because now you're in charge of it. It's not in charge of you anymore. Right now it's running you, but when you put words to it and you take responsibility, now you're running it.
Absolutely. And you find what works for you and you continue to get healing, just like you, Laurie, have, and I have, and so many people that we've talked to have found healing. And thank you so much, Laurie, for how much you have affected my life and my healing journey. You have been awesome and such a key and such a great supporter. And I love you so much. Thank you. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. If you would like to learn more about my coaching with Polar Live Consulting, where I provide one-on-one coaching and group coaching, both with a focus on healing for male survivors, reach out to me at polarliveconsulting.com. That is Polar spelled Polar. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your story.
If you would like your story featured on this podcast, contact me via my website. If you like this podcast, please rate and review because that's how other people can find me, and I really want to spread this message of healing and hope to others. And remember, you are not alone. Healing is possible, and the abuse was not your fault. Let me repeat that. The abuse was not your fault. See you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.